Okay, we're going to start with a view of my feet. We're going to talk about running shoes. I'm doing this video today because I've just bought a new pair and they're nice and clean. They won't look like this for long. First thing we've got to get our head around is running shoes are not nice to look at, okay? They're chunky. You're not going to get a nice, cute pair of running shoes. They look lovely. They're going to be chunky, okay? Get your head around that one first. When you go into the running shop, you're going to be inundated with all these different types of shoes. You're going to have a stability shoe, neutral shoe, a barefoot running shoe, trail running shoe. So to start with, running shoes should be just used for that, for running in. If you also, play tennis or go to the gym, you'll need a different type of shoe. Running shoes have built-in stability in them that keep you going in a straight line. If you're wanting to turn and twist, your foot's not going to want to in these shoes, so then you might put a bit of pressure on your knees. So keep your running shoes for running. Okay, so let's go through the basic bits. I'm going to jump back up. So these I wear a stability running shoe because you can't see it because I've obviously got my shoe on. My feet tip in like that when I run, and it's called overpronation. So if I allow them to keep tipping in, my knees come together, okay? So some people come in, they roll, some people roll out, okay? If you roll out, your hips maybe going to get a little bit of pressure, but normally it's around your knees and your ankles that you're going to feel it. Okay, so some people really, really overpronate to the fact that their ankles almost dip in too. Okay, so if you're running like that, you really want to correct it. So a couple of schools of thought. You can either correct it with strength training, so strengthening your feet, doing lots of mobility, strength work on your feet, or you can put a pair of shoes on that will correct it. Ideally, a bit of both, really. Most people do roll in or roll out slightly. If you don't, if you're really quite neutral, then that's a neutral runner, and you'll need a neutral running shoe that don't have as much support. So the best way to tell, I'm going to pop on the end a little diagram to show you exactly what I mean. But if you try and, when you're standing up, you've got your 3 points of contact, which is your big toe, your little toe, and your heel. So if your weight is evenly distributed on those 3 points, then you've probably got a neutral foot. Okay, with me, if I let my feet just bare feet, I tend to land or put most of my weight through my toe and my heel, and my little pinkies are out here. Okay, so I know I'm tipping in. Okay, so I've done a lot of work to strengthen. They're not as bad, anywhere near as bad as they were, but I still wear a stability shoe. Stability shoe, you've got a nice big thick bit here that's stopping you rolling in. The fit of it is really important. So this is this toe part. Okay, so I'll come up on my toe. Across here, you need to make sure that's not too snug. You don't want any rubbing here. Okay, so you need a little bit of space to wiggle about. You need your thumb space at the front, so my toe is here, and I've still got a thumb width at the front, and that allows, if as you run, you push your toe into the front of your shoe, just allowing enough space so you're not hitting the front. Okay, and also when you're trying on your shoe, obviously they've got to be comfortable. They'll feel slightly loose, very slightly loose, because your feet will expand as you run, as they get heat out. But make sure that they bend in the right place. These are nice and new, and they're bendy, which is great. Some new shoes are really stiff, and I need them to be bending with my toe. So some shoes, I've had a pair before where I'm bending and it wants to bend further up, and that really hurt my foot because there just wasn't that. As you can imagine, as you run, you're coming and rolling forward, so you need that bend in the right place. So on mine as well, I have a little bit of a heel raise, so don't want to get too technical, but that helps with tightness in my Achilles. So I've got a slightly higher on the back of my shoe. Okay. So we need it wide enough here. Sometimes it's then slipping up and down at the back. Don't worry too much about that. It's much more important to get this right, because there's some magic things you can do with your laces that pulls this in, okay, which will make that stay in place. Okay, so what else do we need to go through? Got my list. Okay. The other thing is you'll read something called a cushion shoe. So a cushion shoe is if I watch you run on a treadmill or out in the road and you're a heavy lander, so it doesn't mean to say you're a heavy person, but if you land very heavily, then you'll need a bit more cushioning because you'll need that support. So I've seen people who are really quite large and heavy that actually have quite a low impact stride. They're not hitting the floor hard. And equally, I've had really like small runners that hit the floor hard and need a bit more cushioning. So when it says this is a stability cushion shoe, you know that it's for somebody who either dips in, dips out, and is a heavy hitter on the floor. Okay, if you go for a neutral shoe that doesn't have cushioning, it's somebody who runs quite lightly and who lands with all 3 points of contact on the floor. Okay, so the graph I'm going to show you later, it will show you can do a little test on a piece, like wet your foot and put it on a piece of paper and see what the imprint is. Obviously, if you're leaving a whole footprint, you're probably overpronating where the arch of your foot is touching the floor. If the arch of your foot isn't touching the floor, you're probably a neutral. But if nothing, if it isn't touching the floor, but the whole of that side of your foot is touching the floor, then you're obviously coming out on the side. Okay, so obviously once you've got your shoes, a lot of shoe shops, they'll let you try them on at home and run around the house, and if they're not right, you can take them back. They're expensive pieces of kit, so make sure they're right. Once you find your magic pair of shoes, just try and buy those all the time. Your shoes should last you for 500 miles, so that depends on how often you run. But if you're doing 5K 3 times a week, they'll probably last you about a year. You can normally tell when they've lost all their stability, but keeping a rough idea of what mileage you're doing gives you a guideline of when you need to change them. Once you've, if you want to strengthen your feet, there's lots of things I can do. There's another video on that. And then going on from that, looking at how you run. So is there an issue with your core strength, your glute strength? Are you weak? Are you strong at the front, weak at the back? There's lots of reasons why you could be running slightly wrong, which was causing you injuries. Looking at your posture, are you upright when you run? Again, your pelvic health, pelvic floor health, how, you tip in too far